Recording. What's up, guys? Hopefully, you know me. I'm Zap from the Entrepreneur Center. So excited to be tuning in. So, Adelaide actually did a workshop for us this summer that was a period of time when we did like two in person workshops. So, that was really funny. Good turnout on Zoom, of course. Really excited because we are going to start hosting. You might see this in my emails. We hosted an in person event last week. And that went really well. So every time we are going to start hosting in-person events again with cases going down. Every time we host an in-person event, we're also going to be doing a virtual networking event every other Monday. So we're starting that next Monday. Super stoked. You'll just it's speed networking. So you'll talk to someone for 5 minutes and then they'll kick you out and you have to talk to the next person. So if they're terrible, you don't have to talk to them for long. But if they're great, you can get their number, their contact information, and follow up. But we're having a mix. Workshops are still going to stay virtual, but I'm so excited to have Adelaide here today, resident EC member, native Nashvilleian, back in Nashville. Glad to have you to talk about a topic that I feel like is relatively new. You know, the influencer marketing space is really a new industry, such a growing industry that so many people want to tap into. And she'll be walking us through the ins and outs of it. Anyways, thanks so much for everyone for being here. Thanks, Adelaide, and I'm going to hand things over to you.
Amazing, amazing. All right, I am so excited. This is one of my favorite topics to talk about. So I could talk hours on influencer marketing. So I'm going to try to keep it really short today because I do want to leave enough time for questions. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. By the way, after listening to this talk, if you stay for the entire talk, you will be able to take over my business completely. You will know all the secrets. Now, I only say that half joking, but I will say there's a lot of good stuff today. So definitely try to see if you can stay for the whole hour. All right, well, let's get going. So like Zap said, hello everyone, my name is Adelaide Freeman. I am the founder of Twillo Brand Influencers. Twillo Brand Influencers, we are an influencer marketing agency. Now, a lot of people know what influencer marketing is all about, but maybe they don't necessarily know the ins and outs of it. Well, I'm gonna present to you today, I'm gonna present the ins and outs of influencer marketing. What's the big deal? Is it right for you? I'm also going to present to you, I'm going to talk to you about how to find those perfect influencers if you're interested in doing an upcoming campaign. Now, I do want to say, and I didn't mention this over the last presentation, so I want to say it from the beginning. This presentation is geared towards more B2C companies. So if you are a B2C company, excellent. This is great. This is right on point for you. If you're a B2B company, you're still going to get a lot of value and insights from it. But just for you guys to know, this is more B2C focus. So let's dive right in. What is influencer marketing? We'll start right from the beginning, the basics. So influencer marketing is where a brand is looking to get in front of new audiences, or they're looking to maybe gain more brand awareness, or they're looking to gain brand awareness and also increase their sales. So what they do is that then they go and they partner with influencers. Now, one thing I want to make note is that these influencers, they don't necessarily have to have a really high following, because we know that fake and bot followers are out there. So these influencers, they have very strong influence with their audience, strong influence. Now, also another thing with these influencers though, is that they tend to have very niche audiences. And so when you're partnering with a certain type of influencer, you can guarantee that you're getting your brand messaging in front of a certain type of audience. Now, there are influencer marketing, tactics where you can partner with influencers with a wide array of audiences. But here at Twillo, we actually partner with influencers with very small, micro niche audiences. Now, I'm going to jump more into that later in the presentation. this is really important to understand, but there's a lot of BS out there when it comes to influencer marketing. There's a lot. I even, in one of my talks, it was actually here in the EC, I would say about maybe 4 months ago, I shared, and I got really, really honest and open with everyone. And I said that within the first year of my company, actually it was more like the first year and a half of my company, I didn't have one of my clients, not one client, renew their contracts with me. And the reason for that was I was not bringing value to my clients, clearly, but I was operating on the old way of doing influencer marketing. The old way of doing it is, and what happens with a lot of agencies out there that you partner with, is that these influencers can charge these high flat fees, these extremely high ticket, high flat fees. The brand ends up walking away with beautiful content, but little to no results. And in all honesty, that's how I was operating my company, and that's what ended up happening. It wasn't until I had a wake-up call that then I shifted my business to a whole new direction. Now, if you stay later on in the presentation, I'll actually share with you exactly that business shift. It is so important to partner with the right influencers. You're gonna hear me say this a lot. And the reason is because I really want that to stick with you guys. It's so important to partner with the right influencers. When you partner with the right influencers, not just any pretty face, but the right influencer with the correct audiences that you're looking to get in front of, you're sending warm leads to your website. You're sending quality traffic to your website. You can gain valuable customer insights. You're able to reach new audiences, and ultimately you're going to be able to see conversion lift in sales. So now there are different types of influencers that you can partner with for your brand. I'm gonna break down these categories. Now, the first type of category that we like to categorize influencers are the mega influencers, the celebrity types. These influencers have over 1 million followers. The second is, I would say, the macro influencers. These influencers, now start with, let me back up. This is on Instagram. So Instagram following. These macro influencers have anywhere from 100K to 1 million followers on Instagram. You've got the mid-tier micro influencers, 20K to 100K. You've got the micro influencers from 5K to 20K, and then those nano influencers from 1K to 5K following on Instagram. Here at Twillo, our company, we focus on working with micro influencers. We started at about as low as 1K, and we go all the way up to 75K. Now, here's the agenda for the talk. It's actually going to be broken down into 2 different parts. The first part, I'm going to share tips and tricks on how to increase your own social media presence and engagement for your brands, Instagram and Facebook and so forth. Then the second part, I'm going to dive right into creating an effective influencer marketing campaign for your brand. So how that you can actually implement it and put it to action. So let's jump on in. Now, why is it so important to have strong social media presence and a strong audience engagement for your own brand's Instagram or Facebook? Now, the reason for this is because, believe it or not, if you have poor social media presence, your audience can actually discredit your brand entirely. I know that is quite a bold thing to say, but I see it happen time and time again. You can partner with an agency like myself, where we partner you with those correct influencers with very strong engaged audiences, and we are sending traffic to your website. But what they do 9 times out of 10 is they actually check you out on social media first. They're checking you out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. They're checking you out to see what type of social presence you have. They're checking out the comments. That when you post different types of photos or different types of content, they're checking out your reviews. They check out that first before they make that product purchase. So it is so important that you have a strong social presence and ultimately strong audience engagement. Now, when you do have strong audience engagement and a strong social presence for your brand, then what ends up happening is it helps to strengthen and build your brand's credibility, like I touched on earlier. It helps to generate leads. You're able to gain future clients. You're able to actually stimulate and get more and more testimonials. When you have a strong presence, it's like a snowball effect, and then you start getting stronger and stronger reviews and testimonials. You're able to have stronger brand loyalty and customer retention as well. So it's key to really strengthen your presence and your social media engagement. Now, notice though, I didn't say it's important to have a huge following on Instagram. That is important. Yes, that's definitely part of it. But I don't think that should be the focus. And that's actually my personal, that's my viewpoint here, is you shouldn't go and need to go and buy, all these fake followers for your brand. It's really important to get more of a strong presence, social proof, and a really strong key engaged audience around your brand. Now, it's important to understand what is an audience engagement rate. It's always good to kind of have an idea of what your audience engagement rate is, especially on Instagram, kind of at all times. And the way that you can figure this out, and I'm sure that a lot of you guys are probably very familiar with this type of formula, but for the first 3 posts, add up the likes, the comments, the shares, and then divide by the total number of followers multiplied by 100. Now, if you want to actually get it a little bit more accurate than that, what I do is I go ahead, likes, comments, shares, add that up, but I actually divide it by the total reach for those 3 posts. So not necessarily the follower count, but the reach. So the reach is in the number of eyeballs that actually saw that post and was able to engage with that post. Now, different types of influencers, so influencers, you're acting as the influencer for your brand. They will have different types of audience engagement rates, and you can see that at the bottom. So macro influencers tend to have a little bit less of an audience engagement, where micro tend to have a higher. Now, engagement rates, they do fluctuate on Instagram. And why is that? Why is it that your Instagram engagement rate could potentially fluctuate? The reason for this is because there's a number of different factors. One factor is the time of day that you're posting. How often are you posting? Another factor is what type of content are you posting? Content is key. Another thing is due to follower count as well. Obviously, like I pointed out before in the slide before, if you have a much larger audience, you're going to have a lower engagement rate. If you have a smaller audience, you're going to have a much higher engagement rate. I'm going to say this multiple times throughout this first part of the presentation, but it is key to make sure, though, that you guys already have switched to a business account on your Instagram. The reason for a business account is it's actually going to show you're able to see your analytics and your data for your Instagram, for your content. Now, audience engagement is not vanity metrics, such as high likes and shallow comments. That's not what a strong audience engagement is. If you can confidently say you have a strong audience engagement, that means that your audience truly cares about the content that you are posting, that you are promoting. That means that you're promoting the right content that is attracting the right type of audience, your specific audience. Another thing too, in order to make sure that you have that strong audience engagement that's just not vanity metrics such as a quick like or a quick emoji comment, is that you should be asking your audience on social media, on Instagram and on Facebook, asking your audience thought-provoking questions to stir up specific conversations around your brand, around your product. I don't see enough brands doing this and taking the time to do that. I personally think it's a wise use of money to hire someone or even to have an intern if if budget is not there, to be on Instagram, to be on your Instagram's business page or your Facebook page or your Twitter, and really interacting with your audience. Because the reason this is so important is because you want to be building the right type of audiences, the right type of audiences that are following your product or your brand. Ultimately, with the right type of audiences, yes, it'll increase your engagement rate, but it also will increase quality traffic that is sent to your website, ultimately leading to conversion. So you're probably wondering, okay, great, you say all this, but how do I actually do this? Well, before I jump in, I want to say that I have taken the time when I was actually this past summer when I was locked away in quarantine. I spent majority of my time writing a 30-page ebook on exactly how to do this. And I'm more than happy to send this to you guys. So if you guys let me know, kind of flag me down or send me a message, I can send you this 30-page ebook that I wrote on how to actually execute and implement this. So what are ways to increase your audience engagement? Now, I touched on that a little bit in the slides before, but now let's go in a little bit deeper dive with some different tactics. Post frequency. We all know that one brand, that one person on Instagram that posts too much. I have a couple names in my head at the moment where they post so much that it gets to the point where you actually want to tune them out. You do not want to be that person. You do not want that. You want to be posting anywhere from, I'd say, 2 to 3 times a week. You can, believe it or not, but you can actually post once a week, once every other week in order to, and you'll still be able to maintain a strong audience engagement. So the key is don't post too often because people get tired of it and they'll tune you out. Like I've touched on before, it's really important to be posting thought-provoking content on your brand within your industry. See, your customers want to look to you as the thought leaders. You are the experts on this topic. That is key, being an expert. Another reason why, like I touched on before, it's so important to have that business account is so that you can actually be paying to the analytics and the data. And ultimately, so when you're posting certain different types of content with different types of captions, promotional language, and so forth, you can see which types of posts resonate most with your audience. So testing is key. Another thing that's, especially getting started when you're, working with Instagram and Facebook as well, but this is more towards Instagram, especially when you're getting started. When you're posting photos or your content, actually tag different types of influencers that pertain to your brand, that would be that perfect brand ambassador or influencer for your brand. Tag them in the top corners of your photos. So when you tag them in the top corners, they'll actually be notified and then they'll have an opportunity to come and engage with your content. Don't just tag any and everyone, but only make sure to tag those types of influencers, those individuals that would be very interested in your brand, your product, your service, and so forth. Effective hashtag strategy is key. Testing different types of hashtags. Go and follow your competitors. What type of hashtags are they using? Use those type of hashtags. Test those hashtags. And the way you can really tell how effective they are is by looking at your business Instagram account. Polls and surveys are always a great way to increase audience engagement, increase activity. One thing I've noticed and I've found, and I find it very funny, is that in real life, when someone is talking to you face to face, they might only be, like 80% honest. Over a screen, when it comes to Instagram, behind a screen, that's what I'm trying to say, behind a screen, people get brutally honest. So people will get very honest. So you can actually gain a lot of valuable customer insights through social media. Huge into this. Giveaways are huge. Webinars are really big. Do Instagram Live. It's all about, these are great ways to really indoctrinate your audience into your brand. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to just necessarily make a quick sale, but you want to retain your customers so that they are loyal to your brand and they keep coming back to you. Pay to promote content, pay to promote. I mean, as little as sometimes $10, $15, you can pay to promote, your strongest content, and then it can reach a much larger audience. You can also pay to promote, and then you'll also be driving traffic, directing traffic to your website, ultimately for a product purchase or to sign up to have a call with you. Video content is huge. We all know how important video content is. Now, one thing I see a lot of brands making mistakes on is they think that they have to post a 10-minute video to Instagram, to their Instagram, to their Facebooks. It doesn't require 10 minutes. Sometimes you can do as short as 60 seconds, little nuggets of gold. And the reason for this is because, yes, we have short attention spans, but also because people are always your customers are always on the move, on the go. And they just need something short, a little nugget of gold to retain, to ultimately to build up over time, to really want to be loyal to your brand. Right now, these are some different types of influencers that we've worked with in the past. As you guys can see, beautiful content, they're working with, this is different types of products, different types of brands across the board. So now I just finished wrapping up part 1. And like I said before, if you guys think I maybe went a little bit too fast over that part 1, the only reason is because I want to have time for questions at the end. And I've got a 30-page ebook that I'm more than happy to share with you guys. And it actually goes into a deeper dive into that first part on ways to increase your audience engagement and ultimately ways to strengthen your social presence, having more social proof, which is key. Now, the second part, speaking of social proof, we're gonna jump into the second part, which is you cannot be the only one talking about your brand. I like to say you cannot be the only one tooting your own horn. It is crucial that you partner with brand advocates that are speaking on your behalf on why your product, your service, your brand is key, and why your customers need to implement into their own lives. And so the next part, I'm going to jump into how do you put together an effective influencer marketing campaign for your brand. Like I said before, when we first started, is that there's a lot of BS out there. Influencer marketing at times has gotten the reputation of being smoke and mirrors. That's because another reason is because brands end up can pay high dollar, like a lot of money for a flat fee. And, agencies and influencers come back and say, oh, no, trust me. I promise I'm worth every penny. Don't worry, it's worth it. But, over time, after brands start to be paying these high flat fees, they're actually wondering, is it really worth it to be paying all this money for just beautiful content? I want to see real results. So one of the ways to get real results is to be partnering with the right type of influencer. Not just an influencer with a massive following size that has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of followers, but the right type of influencer that has the right type of audience that you're ultimately looking to get in front of. I've actually heard stories in the past where there's local boutiques in Nashville that ended up spending tons of money partnering with top macro influencers here in Nashville. Believe it or not, after they were partnering and the promotional post went out, they received little to no sales. That was incredibly disheartening for this boutique owner. So all that to say, partnering with the right influencers. One thing too is that I have seen, I've seen a lot of people, I hear a lot of people, they come to me and they say, okay, Adelaide, that's great. How do we actually partner with the right influencers? I get so overwhelmed. There are so many influencers on Instagram. I don't even know where to begin. Well, let me, these next few slides, I'm going to show you where to begin, how to start. So let's say that you are a men's fashionable watch brand. Now, these next few slides, I'm going to show you a tool that you guys can actually implement. You can actually you can partake in this this tool. Get this tool in order to receive the right, to make sure you're partnering with the right influencers. So, like I said, let's say that you're a fashionable men's watch brand. Instead of just scrolling through Instagram to find, fashionable influencers that looks like your type of man that you want to partner with, here is a tool right here where you can actually put in different types of criteria, top keyword searches around your brand that will then end up generating a targeted list of influencers that are perfect to partner with. Now, let's say that you're a fashionable watch brand and you're only looking to target the Nashville market, so you want to get hyper-focused. It is important that you are partnering with influencers whose audience majority is based in the Nashville area. This tool will also be able to not only generate that list of influencers for you, but you'll then be able to click on each of the influencers and see which parts, which parts of the country they have top locations in. So I went ahead and plugged in, this is for example purposes, hashtag men's fashion. That's pulling all of the, the content, the post from across all social media of influencers that spoke on men's fashion. Then I typed in, men's watches, men's accessories. And then I also typed in Nashville as well. So these are top keyword searches, different criteria around your brand. Now, then what I ended up putting in is I said I only want to focus on influencers on Instagram. I want to only show influencers that live in the United States, that live in the Nashville area, and between the ages of 25 to 34, because that is let's say that's the type of, that's who your audience is an individual with between the ages of 25 to 34. And at the bottom, you'll see an audience. I want at least to have 60% male. What then is so cool about this is that then the tool will then end up generating all of these influencers, and you can see it on the right-hand side. We've got Chase, we've got Brian, and we've got Fashionable Jack. Click on that, and then you're able to see, if you guys have noticed, look, that this influencer right here has 12% in Nashville, 7% in New York. So this probably wouldn't be the best influencer to partner with necessarily, because only 12% of his entire audience is within the Nashville area. He's got 37% female and 63% male. So this is the type of data, and I'm going to say this, I'm going to hopefully this point really, is retained, is that this is the type of data that you guys need to be paying attention to before you decide to partner with an influencer, send them your product, and pay them to promote on, to their own social media audiences. If any of you guys are interested in this tool, I'm more than happy to share this tool with you. So message me privately and I'll share this tool with you guys. The next is, we've also got, this is another program as well, that will then be able to generate reports on different influencers. And this is so cool, because what you're able to see is, yes, you're able to see the audience demographics, but you're also able to see the audience sociographics as well. So let's say that you want to partner with Jamie123. You can see what type of interest that her audience is interested in. So 59% are into beauty and fashion, 58% are interested in fitness and yoga. So depending on your brand and your product, you want to make sure that the audience would actually be interested in seeing that brand or product. It all goes back to not wanting to waste money on just any type of influencer, but partner with the right influencer. I think a lot of brands out there, they don't necessarily understand what an influencer's key roles are. So it's always important to have the right expectations when you're partnering with influencers. Influencers have three key roles. The first is, yes, to create beautiful content for your brand's use, however you choose to use it, right? The second is, like I've touched on before, to promote your brand, your product, your service to their own niche social media audiences. But the final is one that you don't hear a lot of influencer marketing agencies say, and this is key, is that if you place a pixel within all the influencers' unique links that you give to them, that every time an audience member clicks on that influencer's link in the bio or the swipe up feature, that pixel is then able to capture audience data. That audience data is gold for your brand, because then you're able to remarket with paid media those audiences. And you're also able to then create lookalike audiences as well based on that. So paid media such as Facebook advertising is key. And I am a huge believer that if you really want to see strong conversion sales for your brand when you're partnering with influencers, do not cut paid media out of the equation. Paid media, Facebook advertising, and influencer marketing must go hand in hand. They work together to further move that ball down the field. I'm going to see how I'm doing on time. Oh, perfect. I'm doing great. Now, I've touched on this a lot throughout the presentation, and now I'm going to, really spend a whole slide really discussing why it's so important. Especially if you were looking to get in front of certain types of audiences, niche audiences. Say that you're not necessarily a Red Bull or a Coke or a Pepsi that pertains to a wide audience of people, but you're a men's fashionable watch brand that is only looking to get in front of a targeted niche audience. Partnering with micro influencers is key. Here at my company, Twillo, we partner with influencers starting as low as 2,000. I said earlier in the presentation, 75K is where we stop. I mean, we go up to 75K, but typically it's between 2K to 50K. That's where we stay. These micro influencers, they have targeted niche audiences, but their audiences truly look to the influencer for advice for success. So 9 times out of 10, their audiences are actually following the influencer because they genuinely care what the influencer has to say. Trust is key. Trust tends to aggregate in smaller audiences. Partnering with micro influencers, you actually get more bang for your buck. Partnering with micro influencers, you tend to also get, micro influencers have higher audience engagement that actually leads to stronger click-through rates to your website. In a past campaign I did, this is when I would say this was about 3 years ago. So when I was testing out this new model, which was performance-based, that I'll speak to later in the presentation. I worked with 2 different influencers. I worked with an influencer that had a very small audience of 10K. Then I worked with an influencer that had a much larger audience of a little bit over 100K. Believe it or not, guess who actually sent more traffic to the website, to the client's website? Yep, it was the 10K influencer. The 10K influencer had 125 unique visitor clicks to the client's website, where the influencer with a much higher following only had 20 unique visitor clicks sent to the website. And this, by the way, this 100K influencer had beautiful content and had a great reputation, but their audience wasn't targeted in niche. And that's what my client wanted to get in front of, a very targeted niche audience. So thankfully, because we were implementing a new business shift at the time, the client actually only had to pay per unique visitor click that was sent to the website. The client didn't have to pay a large flat fee. So what ended up happening was, and what would have happened in the past when I first started my company is that we've got the 10K and we've got the 100K. Guess who the client would have had to pay way more money for? The 100K influencer, because it had a much larger following. But with the new business model, when we made this new shift, because it was performance based, the client ended up only having to pay per click that was sent to the website, and they still received the beautiful content from that 100K influencer. They also still received the reach, the impressions, the analytics from that post as well. Now, one thing I didn't say though, and I meant to say this earlier though, is that the 10K influencer and the 100K influencer, they had similar aesthetics across the board. If you're looking to gain a lot of, if you're looking to get in front of masses and masses of audiences, in front of a lot of people, masses of numbers of eyeballs, people, then sure, definitely partner with a macro influencer, that has 100, 200, 500K following. Definitely do that. But if you're looking to tap into new audiences, to tap into niche audiences that you've never tapped into before, and sales conversion, and you want to see strong lift in sales, definitely micro influencers is where it's at. Micro influencers is where the sales really start to come into play. Now, say that you're like, this next slide is all about influencer compensation. And, what I've seen across the board is there's two different ways to pay an influencer. The first is a flat payment, like I touched on before. The second is that performance. In influencer, you can pay that flat payment to an influencer for X amount of posts, X amount of stories. But I will say though, and I've noticed this with my own experience, because I've worked with both ways to pay influencers. When you pay influencers a flat compensation, flat fee, they have very much of a short-term mindset. They're all about, okay, so all I have to do in order to make $500 is do 2 posts on Instagram. All right, quickly, I'll do 2 posts on Instagram. I'll knock it out. I'll get my payment of $500. But when you pay performance, when it's an incentive-based pay, that is when actually it becomes more of a longer term mindset. And ultimately, don't we want our influencers to have longer term mindsets? Because we want them to be, especially if they have top results, we want them to be brand advocates, ongoing brand advocates, constantly stirring up conversations, constantly promoting your brand. So that's why performance is so key. We here at Twillo, we work with a pay per click. And so that means from the beginning, the click goal is established, and influencers are making sure that they drive out, those clicks to ultimately hit that client's goal. It is all about strategy. Strategy is everything. Like I've said before, influencer marketing and paid media are a must, especially if you want to see sales. Always, always. Give each of the influencers, generate unique links for the influencers, place a pixel within each of the unique links so that that pixel is capturing that audience data. Audience data is gold for your brand, like I've touched on before. Another strategy that's really important as well is that campaigns should be broken down into multiple phases. So the first phase of the campaign should always be the A/B test phase. And this is where you work with a wide pool of influencers. The ultimate goal of this A/B test phase is to really determine the top performing influencers that then are able to graduate to or move on to the second phase of the campaign. In this A/B test phase, you could be testing anything from promotional language. You could have test groups with certain type of promotional language. You could have, testing different types of markets across the country. You could be testing different platforms, Instagram versus Facebook versus Twitter. You could be testing different, in the past, I've worked with a lot of different brands that want to test different types of the aesthetic of the influencers. So we had, I was working with a client that had a beard oil product, and he wasn't exactly sure, is his man a little bit more of a polished man, an urban city polished man, or his man a little bit more of an edgy hipster type of man? So we were able with influencers to test this out. And also ultimately it helped us to determine exactly who his, his audience was, his type of man was. It was cool. When he was first doing Facebook advertising, y'all, he was getting $1 to $1.50 per click for Facebook ads. That is way too high. He was wasting his money. But when we started working with him and we first worked with influencers, having the influencer, doing that A/B test phase, working with the different types of, influencer groups, collecting that audience data through Pixel. Then when at the end of the campaign, from targeting the right audiences, we got his click down as low as 16 cents. So, and that was a span of 3 months. So we started at $1.50 to 16 cents. And that makes a huge difference. Oh, and then another point I want to make too is that when you break, when you break the campaign down into multiple phases, it weeds out the BS influencers. It weeds out the influencers where their audience, when I say BS influencer, I mean their audience just does the fire emoji comments and the heart comments, and that's it. Nothing wrong with fire emoji or heart comments, but you want influencers where their audience truly looks to them for advice and they are influenced to purchase your product. So here is, I'm going to walk you guys through, let's check time. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up in the next 5 minutes so that we can then have time for questions. This is the way we work with our campaigns. Broken down, like I said, in 3 different phases. That first phase is all about awareness. That's the focus of this phase. So when influencers are posting to the different social channels, we're not necessarily going to expect to see strong conversion sales. I tell that to my potential clients all the time. I've got to paint the right expectations for them. That working with influencers, especially with this day and age, you don't tend to see a lot of impulse buys. It takes influencers promoting to their social audiences, multiple times. It takes, also Facebook ads as well to really increase that frequency before you start to see the posts. So this first phase, we are focusing on reach. With the KPIs that we're really monitoring are reach. So dependent on each influencer, do they have a really strong reach? Are they getting in front of a strong audience? We're focusing on video views, on impressions, on sentiments, obviously audience engagement. You guys know I'm huge into audience engagement. The second phase then is engagement. That's where we start to have these influencers talk about the specifics of the product or the service, the brand's product or the service. We also focus on that we look to the click-through. That's an important KPI that we focus on. That final is conversion. That's sales. And that third is where it's optimized with that core group of influencers who are most effective at ultimately shifting audience behavior, where we start to see sales. So like I said before, we've got that first phase. This is the awareness phase. This is where we have the A/B test groups. The top performing influencers from this first phase are they then move on to the second phase, which is engagement. Did you guys know that when an influencer posts to Instagram, majority of the time, only about 10%, 10 to 15% of the entire audience actually is able to view that post. So that's why it's key that with the top performing influencers, we actually promote that post on Instagram to reach a much larger audience. Now, we're not going to spend the money, we're not going to spend budget to promote Instagram posts, on the lower performing influencers. It's only that top performing influencers that you then want to spend money to promote this post. Second phase, top performing influencers from the first continue on to the second phase where they continue to promote. This is engagement. That's the focus of this phase. And then we also, which is key for you guys too, is that then you introduce a new set of influencers into the second phase. Now, this new set of influencers is based on the type of influencer of the top performing influencer. We are, as you can see, we're in Facebook advertising. throughout this entire campaign, starting with the first, the second phase as well. Then we've got that final phase, which is sales. And now all the promotional content needs to be strong call to action. Their audiences have already been exposed to your brand, your product. They're interested, they're engaged, and now call to action. Short, straight, make a move, click the link, purchase here now type of promotional language. The final is review. This is where we send the clients, the individual, the overall campaign, their impacts. So I have wrapped up the presentation. We've got about 13 minutes for questions and answers. Does anyone have any questions?
I definitely think people have questions. Do you want to stop sharing maybe, Adelaide, unless you have a contact slide?
Yeah, that'd be great. I do. Here's a contact slide right here.
Voila. Dominique, would you like to unmute yourself? Oh, where'd you go, Dominique? There you go.
This was an awesome session. I learned a lot.
Thank you.
We're in the beginning phases of, we did a pivot, but we're more targeted for working mom demographic, working moms that are particularly leaders. They lead teams, especially now with handling demand and raising children and trying to work from home all simultaneously. We offer two products. So one is a B2C and the other is a B2B. We host webinar facilitations, and we provide membership programs for working moms that can purchase membership seats, and companies can purchase a number of, if they want to support like 10 working moms to go through our membership program, they can do that, or they can onboard webinars, like they can have us come and do webinars or speaking events. So my question is, how can you have a more intentional approach with, from a B2B standpoint? I have a lot to learn in B2C from what I learned today in this session, but from a B2B standpoint, is there a recommended way to go about utilizing the LinkedIn platform and targeting them more? I look at titles of their positions of who they are, but I know I can be more intentional about it and I'm not spamming anyone, but like be more intentional about the connection or raising, like there's awareness there, but how do we get more into the conversion or get more engagement from people when they see the content that we are providing?
So I'm going to unfortunately give you a very poor answer. And you might think this is a bit of a cop-out, but it's just honest. I believe in sticking within my lane, and I'm an expert when it comes to B2C.
Gotcha.
When it comes to B2B, I'm not an expert. I've got ideas and I've got theories, but I don't want to speak out of turn. So we can do a number of two things. I know someone who is an expert in B2B, and I would be more than happy to connect you with them. Or we can offline, I'd love to have a coffee. We can chat, and I can tell you my theories on B2B.
Okay.
But
I'm all about theory, so.
but I don't want to, I want to stick within my lane and be an expert with it that I know best. So sorry if that's a cop-out answer, but it's just.
Oh no, I appreciate that. I definitely would love to have coffee with you over the a B2C insight as well, and strategic introduction with someone to B2B. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
I had a question about how specific are your contracts with the influencers? Like, are you outlining all of maybe the phases, like, oh, if you get into this next phase kind of thing? Because that's sort of where I'm at with mine. I've got a pool that I picked out, I think, and I've got some ideas around how I want to do it. But I want to know, how specific you get to not like scare them, because
I'm gonna answer your question in a little bit of a roundabout way, but I will eventually answer it. You guys noticed that I shared a lot of different tools with you. So technically, if you wanted, you could just go and you could take those tools and start working on them today and cut me out completely. But I will say, you are paying for me to, really make sure these influencers follow on what they say they're going to do. Influencers forgive me if there's anyone that's an influencer on this call, but they can be shiny object syndrome flaky. And so to answer your question, the more that you have in a contract, the better, so that there is no gray. Influencers know exactly what they're supposed to do, and there's no way for them to wiggle out or for them to not follow through. And so what my tactic is that in my contracts, they get to be pretty nitty gritty, pretty, tons of meaty information. But in the emails that I'm talking, it's a little bit more bulleted points, a little bit more casual is not the word, but not as much overload. So, you also want to be making, like I said before, influencers can be flaky. Shiny object syndrome is a real thing. So you want to scare off the influencers that are not going to follow through and do what they say they're going to do. So
Yeah.
I hope that answered your question.
Well, yeah, no, exactly. Because I was worried about that kind of.
Well, and that's why brands tend to, they do want to hire me, is because they don't have enough time in the day to deal with every single influencer request, every single influencer that drops out because, Lamborghini decided to partner with them instead of, another brand. So a smaller, lower brand. So.
Cool. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Trinity, do you want to mute yourself?
Hi. Yeah, you did a really good job, Adelaide. I loved it across the hall from you. Wish I could have seen live. But I have a few questions. So my first one was, you were super detailed.
Ooh, I'm losing you.
Engagement rates. So I was curious.
Hey, Trin, you're kind of breaking up.
Am I unmuted?
Oh, I'm losing you.
Yeah, I think it's hard for us to hear you, Trinity.
No. Okay. Can I type my question in?
Sure,
Yeah.
please.
Or it's kind of coming in and out too.
Okay, I'm gonna copy. Okay, I'm typing it in the chat.
All right, great. In the meantime, Aaron asked about Fire Festival. I don't know. That's a pretty spicy question, Aaron. Trinity asked a question
I love
too.
it. I love it. Oh gosh, I love it. Trinity, do you see a correlation between engagement rates, conversion rates, and what is that with each type of influencer? That is an excellent question. You win the prize for the best question so far. I would say, I only want to work with influencers that have very strong engagement rates. But just because an influencer has a really high engagement rate does not correlate directly to sales. There's so many factors that go into sales. If the client has a poor website, that's going to hurt sales. If the client has poor social media presence, that's going to hurt all the influencer marketing efforts. That's going to hurt sales. If the client, if the client doesn't necessarily know who his audience is, that's going to hurt its sales. So all that to say, there's a lot of factors that go into play to really correlate to make sure strong sales. And it's not necessarily just working with an influencer with strong audience engagement. But I am not going to work with an influencer that has poor audience engagement, because I have seen time and time again that when I do work with an influencer with a small audience engagement, little click through to the brand's website, not as strong sales. So
I think Anne Elizabeth had a question.
Yes. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I can.
Great. You mentioned early on, I had a couple actually, but you mentioned early on about switching to a business account. I had done that very early and then actually ended up switching to a creator account because there were several things that weren't available to me, including posting music along with some of my stories. Do you know if at some point will that pose a problem for any reason?
I don't think so. I mean,
You still get insights, and there were just a couple of things. I did the research and it didn't appear that that was going to be the case. I was just curious if you had an opinion on that.
No, I haven't seen a problem in that. No,
Okay.
in my experience, not so far.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd have to do a little further research into that, but no, not with my experience thus far.
I just had my very first influencer campaign last week, and it would have been so helpful to have had all of this information before. Although luckily, she was very generous and I didn't have to pay for it, just supplied product. But it would have been really great to have had all this. So this has been a wonderful session.
Oh, good. I'm glad that you got something out of it. Oh, that's awesome to hear. That's so great. Do you guys have any other questions?
Yeah, any other questions? Oh, Trinity asked another question of landing contracts with bigger brands.
Okay, in what regards? Oh, she said, Trinity, what do you mean by that? Are you,
So like, what are your tips for getting those contracts? I know you've with some big brands. What is like your, I guess, process for getting your foot in the door and like closing the?
So are you saying, sorry, I'm starting to lose you, but I'm going to piece together what I hear. Are you saying that like, what's tips for my agency on how to land contracts with big brands, how to partner with it, how to work with them? Is that what you're saying? Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Well, in order for me, I say I'm super old school in this way. I know what I'm good at. And one thing I've learned is that I am better in person than over Zoom or over a phone call or over email. And so I know that with COVID, it poses challenges, but network in person, for me, I know networking in person has landed some of my biggest deals. And I would say that's been a way I've gotten my foot in the door, going to networking events. Obviously, this is before COVID. Following up, reaching out multiple times. I will say it's funny because I lived in New York for 7 years and now I'm here in Nashville. And the tactics between getting my foot indoors in big brands in New York is very different than in the South. In the South, it's all about creating a friendship first, a relationship first. You know, letting them know that I'm a human with qualities and integrity and morals, and so you can trust me. Trust is key first, and that's really helped me to get to create that relationship first. Then ultimately, able to ask those brands, hey, I could see you really benefiting influencer marketing. Do you want to take it a step further? Do you want to work together?
Good. I miss networking.
I know.
COVID. Come back.
I have one other thing. This is very important, and this is, I am not an influencer. I'm not paid to say this, but donut is key, guys. Guys, get on Donut. EC is so great to offer Donut. That has been a great way to network without being able to go to parties or go to networking events. So make sure that whenever a Donut is connecting you with people, follow through with those people to connect.
I love that. Yeah, and we're going to do this virtual networking on Monday.
There we go. That's a great way too.
I think, Alexis, did you have a question?
Well, I just want to say thank you for putting this together.
Oh.
And I know I direct messaged you, Adelaide, to ask you about the book and about the tool that you suggested that we use to find influencers and everything. So, and I know a couple of people had it in the chat, how do we get a hold of this tool? So.
Oh, great. Oh, thank you. I didn't even get a chance to read that. Yeah, there's a lot of different tools out there. I will say the one that I'm using and I think it's excellent is Upfluence. That's a great tool to use. And Upfluence is great. And then also Hype Auditor as well is great for pulling those influencer audience reports. So Hype Auditor and Upfluence have really been game changers. Another great tool to use is, especially if you're trying to generate links, unique links for each of your influencers. Bitly is no good. Don't use Bitly. Use Rocket Link. Rocket Link is great. You can generate those unique links. You're actually able to embed pixels within each of the links. So Rocket Link is key.
Fantastic. And we can reach out to you through your email address that you put up, right?
Yeah, and I'll write it in the chat now. But it's Adelaide, like the city in Australia, Adelaide at Twillo, TWILLO events.com.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Can you hear me, Adelaide?
I can.
Okay, so my name is Gable Eton, and I probably missed a couple things. I had to go and let a friend in the building. And I remember looking at Twillo. I remember looking at the influencer pages, how to determine if the influencer was the person for you. And I forgot those sites. You know, I had them locked in and I can't remember them. But my question is, you have a product that you're ready to get out there now, and you don't have a lot of time to spend 3 months, 4 months on them trying to figure it out. How do you go about finding that one that, okay, that they get your product and they know exactly what to do? And my second part of my question is, what about your own followers? Does that work into the equation?
Okay, so just so I understand correctly, you've got a product that you're looking to get out immediately. Is that right?
That's correct.
And talk to me a little, if you don't mind, sharing a little more on why you're trying to get this product out immediately.
Because, okay, so I'm a product-based person, and my product deals with touchscreens and people coming in contact with germs on these public services. So I don't have like 3 or 4 months to introduce you to it or whatever. It's been out there for about 6 months now. I just need to draw more attention to it now. My purchasing, the ability to purchase is at a height where everyone is concerned about these germs on these public touchscreens and touchpads.
Okay, I see what you're saying. In all honesty, though, I mean, when I said 3 to 4 months, I meant 3 to 4 months. That's the typical campaign timeline that it lasts, and that's where you, by the end of the 4 months, is when you start to see the lift in sales. But you're going to be seeing sales from the first month as well. So I would suggest, if you're trying to get the product out immediately, work with a much larger pool of influencers that are really pushing the promotional post in a much shorter time frame.
Okay, and I want to dominate the questions. When I looked into this, okay, percentage-wise of influencers, you got a person that has maybe 1 million followers. What's the percentage of those people who actually make purchases?
Oh, there's so many factors that go into play. Yeah, when it boils down to sales, I mean, like I touched on before, anything from how strong is your website, has a strong call to action, or is your website, way too much information overload? That can really hurt if your website it has too much information on it with not strong, clear call to actions for purchase. If are you doing? I'm a huge proponent of this. Are you doing paid media plus influencer marketing? The two need to go together to see sales. But I guess all to say, there's a lot of factors that go into play. So it's not necessarily, like I've seen, if you work with an influencer of 100K following, you can expect to see X percentage of sales come from that traffic.
Okay.
Not necessarily, no, because I've had, and I'm huge into Amazon attribution. I'm not sure if anyone is familiar with that. I'm working with a client right now that does Amazon attribution, and so I'm able to see the sales, directly. So an influencer with 10K following and an influencer with 75K following, when they post, I can see what type of sales are generated from their promotional post. And honestly, there's a lot of factors, like I said, that goes into play, but one that I have seen is influencers that have very strong audience engagement, that do a lot of personal talking into the camera, like a lot of stories on, especially on the specifics of the product, the service. So that's a great thing to look for. You don't want to have a camera shy, video shy influencer, and that will do, you know, multiple stories, swipe up as well. So I hope that answered your question. I hope that did.
It did.
I'm not
Full.
sure if it did or not.
Awesome. This was great. Okay, I'm going to cut us off for questions, but seriously incredible. I'm going to share the recording out with everyone, and I'll follow up with Adelaide so I can share just contacts and all this information. But you have your email if you have more questions. How does that sound, everyone?
Sounds great. And we can, I'm not sure who it was that talked about the Fry Festival. So promise me that you do not think I'm ignoring you. I just don't, I don't.
It's a tough question.
It's a tough question. It could take hours.
Yeah. All right. Bye, everyone. Thank you so
See ya.
much.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate y'all attending.